Part 1. The Strange Mirror I booked the Airbnb because it was cheap and had 5 stars. That should have been enough, right? It was a solo trip. I'd just gotten out of a 4-year relationship and needed space from the memories, the arguments, the apartment that still smelled like him. So I chose somewhere isolated, a small cabin near the woods in Oregon. Rustic, but with Wi Fi. Quiet, but not too remote. Just right for healing. The host name was Peter. He had a cartoon fox as a profile picture and over 100 glowing reviews. People said he was responsive, respectful, and kept the place spotless. I arrived late in the afternoon. The key was in a lockbox. There was no check-in, no human interaction. That felt like a relief at the time. The cabin was cute, minimalist. A tiny kitchen, a single bedroom, and a living room with big windows that looked out into the woods. I remember thinking how peaceful it was. Too peaceful. Almost. But it was that mirror that caught my attention. It hung on the far wall of the bedroom. A full-length mirror, framed in black metal, perfectly centered, and oddly angled. At first, I thought nothing of it. I was tired from the drive, and my brain wasn't registering the details. But after I unpacked and lay on the bed, I noticed the angle again. It tilted slightly downward, as if it were watching the bed. I sat up suddenly. Alert. I walked over to it and examined it closely. The mirror didn't have smudges, no fingerprint marks. Immaculate. Which struck me as strange. Everything else in the cabin had a lived-in charm. Scratches on the floor, a stain on the couch cushion. But the mirror was spotless. I tapped it. It sounded off, not like glass, but like there was a hollow space behind it. I leaned in and stared. Then turned off the lights and shined my phone flashlight at it, like I'd seen on TikTok. There was no double reflection, no sign as a two-way mirror, but something still didn't sit right. I tried to shrug it off. Told myself I was being paranoid, but I couldn't sleep that night. Every time I rolled over, I felt like I was being watched. The next morning, I texted Peter. Double quotes. Hey, just curious, is that mirror above the bed new? It looks super high-tech. A few minutes later, he responded, Hi, glad you made it safely. The mirror's been there for a while. Got it from IKEA, I think. Let me know if you need anything. I stared at the message for a long time. IKEA. It didn't look like any IKEA mirror I'd seen. It looked custom. Too precise. Too deliberate. Still, I forced myself to move on. I had a hike planned. I figured some fresh air would help clear the intrusive thoughts. And it didn't till I got back. When I entered the cabin, something felt wrong. Not visibly wrong. Nothing was out of place. But the air felt different. Heavier. I walked into the bedroom and glanced at the mirror again. And that's when I saw it. A tiny red dot. At first, I thought it was a reflection from outside. But then I realized there was no light source behind me. No electronics. Nothing red in the room. The dot was inside the mirror. My stomach dropped. I walked over slowly, heart pounding. I looked closer. There, barely visible beneath the glass, was a small circle, like a lens. The kind you'd see on a webcam, a camera. I stumbled back. No. I grabbed my bag and phone and went outside. My hands were shaking as I called Airbnb customer service. They answered on the third ring. I explained everything about the mirror, the dot, the angle. The rep was calm but clearly alarmed. She said they would escalate the case immediately and open an investigation. She also told me to leave the property for my own safety. I didn't even pack. I threw my phone charger into my bag, grabbed my keys, and drove to the nearest hotel. The whole drive, I kept glancing in the rearview mirror, half expecting Peter to follow me. He didn't. At the hotel, I finally caught my breath. The front desk clerk didn't ask questions. He just handed me the key and smiled kindly. Inside the room, I tried to relax. I showered, ordered takeout, turned on a sitcom, but I couldn't stop thinking about that camera, how long it had been there, how many people had stayed in that room and never noticed. More importantly, who's watching? And then I realized something else. My laptop. I'd left it open on the bed in the Airbnb. Got my clothes, my toiletries, my journals. Everything. They could have seen all of it. I got a call the next morning from Airbnb. We're looking into the host, the woman said. This isn't the first report we've received. What? Yes, she said quietly. There was another complaint a few weeks ago. Someone found a small device in the smoke detector. We were still investigating when your report came. And so, oh no, we removed the listing. We've also contacted local authorities. Would you be willing to speak with a detective? I said yes, of course. An officer called me later that day. His tone was calm, but firm. He asked if I had touched the mirror or removed anything. I told him I hadn't. I'd left everything behind. He told me they'd be securing the cabin for evidence and thanked me for my report. That night, I barely slept again because while the police were now involved, the real fear was setting in. If Peter had done this more than once, if this was a pattern, how many people had no idea they'd been recorded? And what if it wasn't just Peter? I tried to stay rational. Let the investigation play out, but I couldn't help myself. I searched his name, cross-referenced it with forums, Reddit threads, even Facebook groups about Airbnb safety. And what? I found made my skin crawl. Part 2. The reviews they didn't post. The deeper I dug, the more uneasy I became. After Airbnb removed Peter's listing, I assumed that was the end of it. The police were involved, and I'd done my part. But a nagging voice inside wouldn't stop asking, was this really isolated? I spent that night in the bland comfort of the hotel room, laptop propped on my knees, lights dimmed. My heart thudded quietly in my chest as I scrolled deeper and deeper into obscure corners of the internet. Forums, discussion boards, review. Websites, places I'd never imagined visiting until that night. I typed Peter's name and location into a search bar, expecting maybe one or two hits. Instead, my screen was flooded with dozens of results. Mostly praise, some neutral, but as I clicked deeper, something stood out. It wasn't what people were saying about him. It was what they weren't saying. The reviews felt too similar. Quickly noticed the pattern. Reviews from guests, multiple different accounts, shared almost identical phrasing. Amazing host, very clean cabin. Would absolutely recommend Peter's place. 5 stars. Fantastic location. Felt totally safe. Same phrases, repeated again and again. Different users, same exact words. Like someone was writing them from a script. My heart began to race. Why hadn't Airbnb flagged this? Had he faked these reviews himself, or worse, coerced guests into writing them? I scrolled through usernames, clicking randomly. None had real pictures. All were generic, smiling stock photos or blank avatars. Accounts with only one review, Peter's. Suddenly, I felt sick. And then I found a single negative review buried beneath the sea of praise was a single 1-star review. It was anonymous, posted over 2 months ago. Something was off about this. Airbnb. Host made me uncomfortable. Left after one night. No specifics. No mention of cameras or privacy. Just discomfort. But there was one comment under it. Message me. I hesitated only a moment before clicking the commenter's username. It was someone named Sasha from Los Angeles. I quickly composed a message. Hi, I stated the same. Airbnb. I found something disturbing. Did you see anything unusual? I hit send, my fingers shaking slightly. Then I waited. Sasha responded almost immediately, within minutes. A notification popped up. Yes, call me. She included her number. Without hesitation, I dialed. Sasha answered on the first ring. Her voice was tight, anxious. You found a camera, didn't you? My blood froze. Yes, how did you? Because I found one too. Her words hung between us, heavy and cold. She spoke quickly, as if releasing a weight she'd been carrying too long. I was there a month before you, she said. Same cabin, same mirror. But I didn't report it right away. I was scared. Thought I was overreacting. She paused. I could hear her breathing heavily. When I finally called Airbnb, they acted like it was a minor misunderstanding. Sighed. It was probably an oversight from the owner. They promised to look into it, but never followed up. They said you were the first to report something, I whispered, my stomach churning. They lied, Sasha said, sharply. Or maybe someone at Airbnb covered it up. I don't know. But there's more. Sasha's story made everything worse. Described how, after leaving the cabin, she received strange messages. Anonymous texts with photos of herself. Clearly screenshots taken from footage inside the Airbnb. My number wasn't listed anywhere on my Airbnb profile. Sasha said, he shouldn't have had access to it. You think Peter sent them? Or it was behind him, Sasha said, her voice trembling. Because, honestly, I don't think he's working alone. The messages kept coming, even after I blocked the number. They found me on social media. Sent me screenshots of my address, my work schedule, even my gym membership. I felt nauseous, my mind spinning. Was that going to happen to me? Did you report it to the police? I asked, trying to steady my voice. Yeah, Sasha said bitterly. But nothing happened. They took a report, told me to block numbers, change passwords. No arrests, nothing. We were silent for a moment, connected by shared dread. Sasha had one more piece of advice. Listen, she said carefully. You need to wipe your digital footprint immediately. Wipe my footprint? I echoed, confused. Delete your Airbnb account, delete social media, change your passwords. They know your name, your face, probably your whole life. And if they haven't contacted you yet, it means they're waiting. I swallowed hard. Waiting for what? She didn't answer. Right away. When she finally spoke, her voice was small. I don't know. And that's what scares me most. She hung up, leaving me clutching the phone, alone with the terrible silence of the hotel room. I followed her advice immediately. I spent the next hour deleting accounts, changing passwords, erasing traces of my existence online. With every keystroke, paranoia tightened its grip. I felt watched even there in that anonymous hotel room. But the worst part, the realization that Sasha might be right. This wasn't just Peter. This was bigger. More calculated. And I was their next target. The police update felt too calm the following afternoon. I called the detective assigned to the case. He sounded indifferent, almost bored. We've swept the property, he said. Found a small camera device. Nothing that indicates an active threat beyond invasion of privacy. We're looking into Peter's background now. But someone else reported this before me. I protested. A woman named Sasha. There was silence. Then he said calmly, we'll check into it. But for now, please just stay safe. Change your passwords. Don't post your location publicly. He sounded exactly like Sasha had described, dismissive, like he was going through the motions. I decided to leave town that evening. I booked the first flight I could find home. I couldn't stay in that place another second, constantly checking over my shoulder. But as I packed, my phone buzzed. A new text message from an unknown number. Hands shaking, I opened it, it was a single photo of me taken inside the Airbnb bedroom. I was unpacking my suitcase, clearly unaware of being recorded. Below the photo. A single line of text. Running won't help. I threw my phone down, pulse pounding in my ears. They found me already. Panic set in, grabbed my things, rushed downstairs, and checked out immediately. I changed hotels again, paid in cash, used a fake name. But as I sat alone in yet another dark hotel room, the paranoia crept deeper. Could they track my phone? Had they already found my family? My friends? Did they know everything? Sasha's words haunted me. I don't think he's working alone. If that was true, how many people were involved? And what did they want? The door knocked at midnight that night, just as I was drifting into a restless sleep. A sharp knock jolted me awake. My heart jumped to my throat. I froze, staring at the door. Housekeeping, came a muffled voice. But housekeeping wouldn't come at midnight. I stayed silent, my breath shallow. The knocking came again, louder, insistent. Hello? The voice called again, not friendly, almost mocking. Open up. I slipped out of bed, tiptoed to the peephole, and looked through. A man stood outside, his face partially hidden by a hood. He leaned closer to the door, like he knew I was watching. I know you're in there, he whispered. I stumbled back, covering my mouth to stifle a scream, because even in the dark hallway, I recognized him. It was Peter. And he wasn't alone. Part 3. He's not alone. I staggered backward, heart pounding like it might burst through my chest. Peter was right there, just beyond the flimsy hotel door. And the shadow beside him, a taller, broader figure I didn't recognize, told me clearly he wasn't alone. For a moment, I couldn't think. I couldn't breathe. Open up, Peter repeated. Softly, almost gently, as if trying not to alert any other guests. I just want to talk. I took a shaky breath and backed away, reaching for my phone, my hand trembling violently. But as I unlocked the screen, it buzzed with another text from an unknown number. Calling 911 won't help. They knew exactly what I was doing, how? I glanced frantically around the room. My eyes landed on the heavy wooden dresser. Without thinking, I lunged for it, sliding it toward the door as quietly as possible. The carpet muffled the sound, but the scraping was enough for Peter to notice. Hey, he said sharply. Don't do anything stupid. My pulse raced as I wedged the dresser against the door, but it felt pathetically weak compared to the threat outside. What do you want? I finally called, hating how my voice shook. We just want to clear things up, Peter answered smoothly, the calm in his voice terrifying me even more. You misunderstood everything. Let's just talk. No, I whispered more to myself than him. Then louder. I already talked to the police. Peter chuckled softly, a sound that made my skin crawl. Yeah, we know. I leaned heavily against the dresser, struggling to think straight. My phone was useless, whoever it was with. Peter had clearly hacked it. Calling anyone seemed impossible. I glanced desperately toward the window, my mind racing. Could I climb out? Would I survive the fall? As if reading my mind, Peter spoke again. We've been watching you for days. Think carefully about what you do next. I felt sick, watched for days. How long have they known my every move? Then I remembered Sasha's warning. They're always one step ahead. Panic surged through me, raw and unfiltered. I had to escape, but how? I crept to the window, carefully peeking through the blinds. The hotel room was on the second floor, a concrete drop below, illuminated dimly by streetlights. I scanned the parking lot empty, except for a single van, lights off, waiting ominously near the edge of the lot dock. My gut tightened. Was that theirs? I returned to the center of the room, trying to think clearly. Suddenly, my phone buzzed again. Against all my instincts, I glanced at the screen. Just open the door. It'll be easier. I stared at the message, panic giving way to anger. Easier for who? Then a loud thump at the door, Peter, testing the lock. I flinched, backing further away. Another bang, more forceful this time. They weren't asking anymore. They were coming in. Please, I whispered under my breath, praying someone in the hotel would hear and intervene. The next bang was loud enough to wake anyone nearby. You're only making it harder, Peter said, his tone growing impatient. Open the door. I glanced around frantically, grabbing the only thing I could, a heavy glass ashtray from the coffee table. I clutched it tight, heart hammering wildly. If they broke through, at least I wouldn't go quietly. But suddenly, the banging stopped. Silence. Flooded back in, heavy and oppressive. I stood still, barely breathing, straining my ears. Then footsteps retreated slowly down the hallway. I stayed frozen for what felt like forever, heart racing in disbelief. Had they given up? But instinct told me otherwise. They weren't leaving. They were regrouping. Then, as if confirming my worst fear, my phone lit up again. See you soon. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed my backpack, jammed my phone and wallet into it, and rushed to the window, unlatching it frantically. A burst of cool night air hit me as it opened. My stomach lurched at the drop below. But I had no choice. I climbed out carefully, balancing precariously on the narrow ledge. Cold air burned my lungs, making my breathing shallow. My hands gripped the windowsill, legs shaking just as I prepared to jump. A figure appeared beneath me, directly below the window, emerging from the shadows. Peter. He was staring straight up at me, his expression hidden by the darkness. He shook his head slowly, almost disappointed. No, I whispered, frozen in terror. Did you really think we'd leave the back unguarded? He called up softly. Calm down. Let's stop this nonsense. I looked behind me desperately, but the ledge was too narrow to move along. I was trapped. Peter spread his hands in a gesture of surrender. We're not going to hurt you. We just need to talk. Liar, I spat, voice trembling. He sighed theatrically, then glanced to the side. His accomplice appeared from the shadows, holding a device that looked like a remote control. You can come down voluntarily, Peter said calmly, or my friend here can make things uncomfortable. The man raised the remote menacingly. What is that? I asked shakily. Peter smiled coldly. It shuts off power and cell signals in a small radius. It won't just affect you, it'll affect everyone here. No one will come looking for you. You're bluffing, I said weakly. Try me. Panic rose in my throat, choking me. I couldn't jump into their waiting hands, but I also couldn't stay. Here. My fingers were numb, grip slipping on the cold metal frame. Suddenly, my hotel room door burst open violently, followed by angry shouts. Lights flashed inside. Police. Relief surged through me like a flood. Peter and his accomplice looked startled, frozen by the sudden commotion above. Hey, don't move. An officer shouted from my room. Peter cursed under his breath, grabbing his accomplice's arm. They bolted toward the waiting van, engine roaring to life even before they reached it. Stop. I screamed, trying to point desperately as officers rushed to the window. Below. The van screeched out of the parking lot. Tires squealing, strong arms pulled me back inside, away from the ledge. An officer wrapped a blanket around my shaking body. You're safe now, he murmured gently. Tears burned hotly down my cheek, relief mixing with horror. Safe? I wasn't sure that word meant anything anymore. They questioned me for hours in the hotel lobby. I told them everything about Peter, the Airbnb, the hidden cameras, Sasha's warnings. The detective listened carefully, jotting notes, his expression grim. They've been doing this for months, he admitted quietly. You're not the first, but you might be the first they've gotten this aggressive with. Who are they? I asked weakly. We don't know yet, he said gently, clearly frustrated. But they've targeted multiple women. Airbnb is cooperating? No, but their system seemed compromised. I stared blankly at the floor, numbed out eventually. The detective sighed and offered. We can keep you under protection, temporarily. I nodded silently, too exhausted to think. They moved me again. This time to a safe house, quiet, secluded, with armed guards outside. The detective handed me a burner phone. Don't contact anyone except me, he instructed firmly. We're still unsure how much they know about you or how they're tracking you. I took the phone, suddenly feeling utterly alone. That night, I lay awake on the narrow cot, unable to stop trembling. Every sound outside, every rustle of leaves, made my heart jolt up. Then, as dawn broke, the burner phone buzzed softly beside me. I sat up, pulse racing, and stared at the screen. Nice try. You can't hide forever. I felt my throat tighten, panic flooding my chest again. How had they found this number, this safe house? Then a horrifying realization hit me. Someone inside the investigation was helping them. Peter wasn't alone, not just physically, but in power and influence. Whoever they were, they had resources, reach, and access to police operations. And that meant one chilling truth. I wasn't just in danger from Peter. I was in danger from the very people who were supposed to protect me. Part 4. Nowhere to hide. Stared down at the message on the burner phone, my hands trembling uncontrollably. Nice try. You can't hide forever. How had they found me? This was supposed to be a secure safe house. Nobody knew I was here except the police. And that meant one terrifying thing. The police weren't safe either. I stood abruptly. backing away from the phone as though it were a venomous creature, panic roaring through me. My breathing quickened, heart pounding painfully in my chest. I glanced toward the window, the early morning light filtering through heavy blinds. A security officer stood at the end of the driveway, casually leaning against his patrol car, drinking coffee. The sight, which had comforted me only hours ago, now seemed sinister. Was he protecting me or watching me? I sank onto the edge of the bed, head spinning. If I couldn't trust the police, who could I trust? I reached for the phone again, hands shaking violently. I wanted to throw it, smash it, anything to stop the fear coursing through me. But I needed it. It was my only lifeline. A knock sounded softly at the bedroom door. I jumped, heart leaping into my throat. Hey, said a gentle voice. It's Officer Martinez. Are you awake? I hesitated, breath shallow, mind racing. Martinez had been kind to me since I had arrived, but could I trust him? I swallowed hard, voice trembling as I finally answered. Yeah, I'm awake. He opened the door slowly, stepping into the room with concern etched on his face. Is everything all right? I heard you pacing. I hesitated, clutching the burner phone tightly. Should I tell him about the message? Could I afford not to? I'm just nervous, I said lamely. Couldn't sleep. Martinez frowned, studying me carefully. Listen, he said softly, stepping closer. I know this is scary, but you're safe here. Nobody knows you're here except a select few officers. My stomach twisted. Was he one of them? The people after me had already proven their reach went deeper than I'd imagined. Can I get you anything? Martinez asked gently, eyes warm with concern. No, I whispered. Thank you. He lingered for a moment, clearly uncertain, then nodded and left quietly. Closing the door behind him, I sank to the floor, breathing heavily. The walls felt impossibly close, like a trap. Slowly closing, and my eyes flicked to the burner phone. Again, I had to get out. I couldn't risk staying here. I dressed quickly, quietly, slipping on a hoodie and jeans. Every noise outside the door, every creak, made me flinch. I grabbed my bag, double-checking my essentials, wallet, cash, and the cursed phone, and slipped to the bedroom window dot. It slid open soundlessly. Relief flickered briefly inside me. At least this was easy. I climbed through, dropping softly through damp grass. The crisp morning air was almost shocking after hours spent suffocating inside. I crept around the corner of the building, keeping low. Officer Martinez was talking quietly on his radio, his back turned. For a heart-stopping second, he glanced in my direction, but didn't see me. I sprinted across the lawn, feet barely touching the ground, heart racing painfully in my chest. Trees loomed ahead, thick and shadowed. Once I reached them, I stopped. Briefly, leaning against a trunk, gasping for air. I checked the phone again, heart sinking. Running makes it worse. Just talk to us. I shoved the phone away in disgust and fear. Who were these people, and what did they want from me? Was it Peter's group alone, or something even darker? Branches snapped somewhere behind me. I spun, eyes wide, panic flaring anew. Wait, called a familiar voice. Martinez. He emerged from the tree line, holding up his hands defensively. Please, just wait. I'm not here to hurt you. How did you know? I cried, stepping backward. Who told you? Nobody told me, he said gently, approaching slowly. But you're scared, and scared people run. I studied him carefully, pulse pounding. He seemed genuinely concerned, eyes earnest and pleading. You can trust me, he insisted. I know that's hard right now, but I swear I won't let anything happen to you. I hesitated, torn. Every instinct screamed at me to flee. But his sincerity felt genuine. I was exhausted, desperate for someone to rely on. Finally, defeated, I nodded slowly. Martinez exhaled with relief, stepping closer. Come on, let's get somewhere safe. He guided me carefully through the trees toward a car hidden further in the woods, a civilian car, unmarked. Mine, he explained briefly. Not traceable to the department. We climbed inside, silence thickening as he started the engine. He glanced at me sideways as we drove. I believe someone inside our department tipped them off, Martinez said quietly. After a moment, you were right to leave. Why should I trust you? I whispered shakily. Because, he said firmly, eyes on the road, they got my sister too. My breath caught sharply. What? Martinez nodded grimly. Same scenario. She rented an Airbnb last year. Hidden cameras, intimidation, threats. I started investigating privately. I found connections. Connections? I echoed weakly. Yes, he said darkly. These aren't random incidents. This group is organized. They target specific people, women, mostly young, traveling alone. My sister fought back, reported them. She disappeared 3 months ago. I'm sorry, I whispered, horror twisting my stomach. That's why I'm helping you, Martinez continued quietly. Because I won't let it happen again. We drove in silence after that, tension crackling like static. I was too exhausted, too frightened to speak more. Martinez navigated unfamiliar roads, constantly checking mirrors, shoulders tight with caution. After nearly an hour, he turned onto a narrow dirt road, hidden deeply within thick forest. Where are we going? I asked nervously. Somewhere safe. He replied, a family cabin. Nobody knows it. We arrived at a small wooden structure, isolated and tucked into the trees. It was modest but solid. Martinez unlocked the door quickly, motioning me inside. It's rustic, he apologized, lighting a gas lamp, but secure. I sank onto a worn sofa, shaking with relief and lingering fear. Martinez moved quickly around the cabin, locking windows, checking doors. Finally satisfied, he joined me, eyes heavy. With fatigue, we'll stay here until we figure this out. I nodded silently, exhaustion dragging me under, but peace didn't last late that night. As Martinez slept fitfully in a nearby chair, the burner phone vibrated again, chilling my blood, hands. Trembling, I looked at the screen. Nice cabin. Did Martinez tell you about his sister? My stomach lurched violently. How could they know? How deep was this infiltration? I shook Martinez awake, shoving the phone into his hands. His face paled visibly as he read. They're playing with us. He muttered darkly. They want us to panic. They've succeeded, I whispered, tears pooling in my eyes. Martinez sighed heavily, sitting forward. They're closer than we thought. A sudden noise outside, soft footsteps crunching gravel. Martinez shot. Upright, gun drawn instantly. He motioned me behind him protectively, eyes narrowed sharply toward the door. Silence. My heart thundered deafeningly in my ears. Stay behind me, he whispered fiercely. The doorknob twisted slowly, tortuously. My breath hitched painfully in. My chest then it opened, creaking ominously. A figure stood silhouetted against moonlight, face hidden in shadow. Martinez raised his weapon, voice tight and controlled. Don't move. The figure stepped forward into the light, hands raised. Wait, I gasped, heart jolting in recognition. Sasha? She lowered her hands slowly, eyes wide with fright. Thank God you're alive. I didn't know who else to trust.